Hey, I think our recording has started here. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Cal OAR Forum. My name is Katie Nicholson, and I'm one of the CQI specialists on the Cal OAR team. I'm glad that you are all able to join us today as we give our biannual update of everything that's happening in the world of Cal OAR. All right, so we're gonna get started by going over some basic housekeeping. This meeting is being recorded, and just as a side note, at this time, CDSS is not allowing AI meeting note recording. If anyone is planning on using that feature, please disable it. Everyone has been muted. However, there will be periodic times during the presentation that attendees will be able to raise their hands and ask questions. CDSS will prompt the audience during those times. Questions in the chat will be noted and answered either in the chat or during the periodic question break. Also, there will be a forum Q&A at the end of the presentation for any remaining questions that have gone unanswered. The faces seen in the photos here are the people that make up our program innovation section, as well as our data team. Some are old, some are new, but still an awesome team, many of which you will hear from today. Before we get started on today's presentation, we're going to do an icebreaker, which I know you all love. You love it, right? It's a new year. Does anyone have any resolutions or plans for next year that they would like to share in the chat? My plan for next year, my resolution is to force my 17-year-old twin boys to start doing all the things for themselves. And I'm not going to do it anymore. That's my resolution. Oh, some are new and some are experienced, LOL. Well, yeah. My resolution for this year is to learn to drive and get my license. Heck yeah, JR. That's awesome. Take more pictures. Yes, agreed. I always forget to do that. Let's see. I'm going to be a first-time grandma. Oh my gosh. That's so exciting. Congratulations. Lose weight, travel more, sleep more. Yeah, to leave the kids. Let's see. Yeah, this is a learn. Oh, yeah, I lost my place here. Wow, there's so many. Make healthier choices. I agree. So I think we're gonna move on to the next. I love all of your resolutions. I'm really glad. I mean, resolutions sometimes are tough, but I feel like if you have the best intentions, you can make it happen for sure, and make time for yourself. Oh, I love that for sure. It's incredibly improved communication skills, listening to lots of podcasts. Yes. I listen to Amy Poehler. That's my favorite podcast right now. Uh, a good hang. It's really funny. Anyway, okay. So I'm so glad that you all are all here, and I'm glad that you're having hopefully a good new year so far. We're going to move on to the agenda for today because we have so much packed in. So I just got to like push on through so we can get to all this good content for everyone today. So for today's agenda, we'll be looking back at the CTA and Cal OAR highlights. I'm so glad to see so many of your faces at the CTA. It was wonderful getting to meet all of those that I have not met before. Celebrating the end of this cycle and county accomplishments. Then we'll move on to Progress Report 2 submission dates and wrap-up reminders. Lizzie will then provide some second cycle updates before the PARS team reviews information concerning the new baseline and threshold, data resources, client satisfaction survey update, and a phase 2B validation update. We will wrap up with a forum Q&A. So now I'm going to hand it over to Diane to discuss the CTA.
Thank you, Katie. The Cal OAR Training Academy, which was held December 2nd through December 4th, 2025, was great for those counties who were able to attend. The Cal OAR 2025 workshops were Workshop 3A, titled Cal OAR First Cycle Focus on Success. The presenters were our CDSS team, and they were joined by Corey Watson and Veronica Riviera from Siskiyou, Stephanie Gomez and Enrique Nunez from Imperial, Monica Montez and Kale Barbada from Riverside. Workshop 5A, titled Using Data to Identify and Measure Progress through the Cal OAR CQI process. These presenters were our CDS team, joined by Aleda Montenegro from Tulare, Jacqueline Garza from Orange, Robert Merneda from Ventura. And the last workshop for D, titled Cal OAR Second Cycle. This was presented by CDSS Lizzie Griffith and Raven Gill. For the overall successes, counties have made significant progress through Cal OAR implementing innovative improvements, strengthening community partnerships, and sharing lessons learned, promising practices, successes, and next steps, which were discussed during the CTA. These sessions highlighted growth, a deepened commitment to equity, and thoughtful transitions as you all head into the next CQI cycle. CDSS also highlighted some of the updates for the next CQI cycle, and Lizzie will be speaking to these updates a little later in this presentation. So here are some survey feedback when participants were asked what did they find most useful or provide additional feedback about the session with the Cal OAR workshops. And while I share the feedback, here are some photos with the CTA workshops. Survey feedback was there's a sense of community. It was a wonderful panel. I am excited for the new changes to come. It's helpful to know what possible changes are coming to help better prepare yourself for a smoother transition. Also found it helpful to see what changes have been implemented already and how they have benefited the customers. The presentation from Ventura, Orange, and Tulare here were thorough, informative, and inspiring. The presentation was useful and knowledgeable. The county stories and tips, various county perspectives and sharing. And lastly, it's evident the care and determination these counties have out into their Cal OAR work. Very impressive. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Praband.
Prabhan, you're muted.
Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone. I'm Prabhan Thapa, CQI Specialist, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the dedication and hard work that all the counties have put into the first CQI cycle. We are nearly at the finish line, and your efforts have been nothing short of outstanding. Being involved in the CalWork cycle is a huge accomplishment, and I just want to take this moment to celebrate all that we've achieved together. This work truly changes lives, strengthening families, creating pathways to stability, and building a more resilient communities for generations to come. With the last deliverable of the CalWork cycle, Progress Report 2, the report submission due date for Cohort 1 was January 9th, 2026, just a couple weeks ago, and is currently in the review process. The due date for Cohort 2 is March 27th, 2026. The submission due date for Cohort 3 is June 12th, 2026. And for Cohort 4, the due date is June 26th, 2026. Now I'll pass it off to Seth.
Thank you. As a reminder, Progress Report 2 serves as the final report for this CQI cycle, so congrats to everyone. If you have questions about expectations or any questions about how to complete the report, the November Community of Practice session included a dedicated walkthrough of some questions from the Progress Report template, so we do encourage you to revisit those materials as needed. And as always, your assigned CQI specialist is available to provide direct support on any CQI report. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to support you in closing out the cycle successfully and preparing for the next one. So with that, I will pass it to Lizzie to go over second cycle updates.
All right, thank you, Seth. So first of all, I am just so excited to actually be talking about second cycle. Thank you to all of the hard work from everyone who's contributed to making this happen. We are at the end of our first Cal OAR cycle. It feels a little surreal to those of us who've been working on this since pretty much the beginning. We have learned so much. There is so much information that we did not have about our program when we started this in 2021. And now we do. We have it, and we can use it to make improvements for the families that we serve. So, a huge round of applause to everyone who has helped us get to this point. It's really incredible. A lot of teamwork and a lot of appreciation for everything that we've done together. So, second cycle begins on July 1 of this year. I can't believe it. It's here. Based on some feedback that we have, we are making some changes. We are CQIing the CQI process as we move into the second cycle. Next slide, please. So we're hoping that this makes improvements all around. So, first of all, based on the feedback that we've received specifically from the optimization subcommittee that met about almost 2 years ago at this point, we will be revising the CQI report templates. So that's the templates for the CSAs and the SIPs and the progress reports. The feedback that we got from that subcommittee really focused on wanting to revise the prompts for clarity to make sure that it was very clear to counties as they filled out those reports what the questions were. So we're reframing some of the questions in those templates to better capture the intent of the original subcommittees that put them together, and to really make sure that we're focusing on what it is that we all want to know. So we being CDSS, but also the counties, CWGA, the advocacy community, representatives from the state legislature as well. So we're going to be revising some questions just with clarity in mind. We're going to revise some others so that there's more clarity around CalWORks 2.0 and ensuring that there's parity in outcomes for our participants. Also, we obviously need to capture changes associated with SB 119, also known as the Transforming CalWORks reforms that are going through. And we also need to build in our baselines and thresholds. And a conversation about what the baselines and thresholds mandate means for you is coming in a little bit later today. Obviously, we will also revise all of the trainings and tools and other resources to make sure that they reflect these changes to the templates. Next slide, please. One of the other lessons we learned in this first cycle is that we could really improve the way our cohorts were structured. So hopefully at this point, many of you have looked at ACIN I-5425 that was released last fall. We are revising the timeframe and the structure for the CQI cycle. So again, this is largely based on feedback we received from our optimization subcommittee. So that subcommittee suggested that we provide a little bit more time between the phases of the CQI effort. So a little bit more time between the reporting periods. That way we can ensure that one phase of the CQI reports is fully complete before we start the other one. We also got some suggestions to reorganize the cohorts so that smaller counties are grouped together and positioned with a higher level of support from CDSS. So for the revisions to the cohort structure here, we considered geographic region, county size, population density, and the county operations. So next slide, please. This will show the reporting timeline and the updated cohort structure for the next CQI cycle. So you can see that cohorts are a little bit more evenly distributed. And we've also got a bit more space in between when the various reports are due. So that should really help streamline things. Those of you who have been around since the early days might remember that the original cohort structure and reporting cycles looked pretty similar to this. But then as we went, we had to make some adjustments as data was available and ended up kind of with less than optimal structure. So we've revised it back to our original intent. We've got more like with like in terms of county size and geography, and we've got a bit more time between the various reports. Again, this is in ACIN 5425 for you to make note of. And so we see that our first CSA drafts are due in late summer and into the fall of 2027. So we've got a little bit of time. Next slide, please. As always, we want to make sure that we're providing ongoing support for our CQI work. So to that end, we have been working on a website relaunch, still a little bit underway. We worked with Mathematica on this to make sure that we were best serving the evolving needs of our community. We got direct input from counties in particular around the user experience of the website to make sure that you all have streamlined access to the most relevant tools and data and guidance that you need in working through Cal OAR. So we are still working to finalize some of those updates, but the new website is starting to come online page by page. We will continue our community of practice sessions in the next CQI cycle, and we will continue to listen to the needs of our county partners to make sure that we're hosting a space that really best serves you all in thinking about your methods for implementing your SIP strategies. And also we want to make sure that it's a space where we can foster county connections as well. We will also be continuing our Cal OAR forums. Based on feedback, we currently hold our forum once every 6 months. In the past, they have been as frequent as monthly. So that really is based on community demand. So please let us know if this cadence is working well for you. We'll continue and we'll see you in July. If not, we can meet a little bit more frequently if you'd like. And of course, individual technical assistance is always available from your CQI specialists. We really want to ensure that we're continuing to build these really strong relationships with our community partners throughout the next CQI cycle. And of course, we are committed to CQIing the CQI process and making changes as we go as needed. And so with that, I'm going to pass over to Raven and the Program Administration and Research section to talk about the mandate in the second cycle that we establish baselines and thresholds for Cal OAR performance measures. Thanks.
Thank you, Lizzie. Good morning, everyone. Now, we will go over the baselines and thresholds. We encourage you to please hold any questions until the end of this section, and Jaspreet will open up the floor for the Q&A regarding baselines and thresholds. Next slide, please. And I will pass it over to Alex.
Thank you, Raven. We'll now go over the policy context behind the Baselines and Thresholds initiative. On this slide, we have the actual text of the WIC mandate. In the following slides, we'll dissect this into more manageable pieces so that you can take away the most important parts. For some background information, Cal OAR is now in the final year of its first cycle. In 2023, CDSS convened the CalWORKS Advisory Committee and Subcommittee to provide input on the best way to develop these baselines and thresholds, including a subcommittee that met from November 2023 through July 2024. Next slide, please. The mandate requests CDSS to use process measure data from the first Cal OAR cycle. The WIC section states that during the first 5-year cycle, performance indicator data as reported by each county shall be used to establish both county and statewide baselines for each of the process measures. After the first review cycle, the department shall, in consultation with the work group, establish standard target thresholds for each of the process measures established by the work group. Next slide, please. These are the 6 process measures that will be establishing baselines and thresholds for: engagement rate, sanction resolution rate, orientation attendance rate, OCAT appraisal completion timeliness rate, and first activity attendance rate. These particular measures have been chosen because they focus on areas where counties can have direct impact on performance through local decision making and implementation. Additionally, please recall that there is a built-in lag time for each process measure based on which 19 file they come from. That is, there is a reporting delay from when the data is received to when it is finally published on our Cal OAR dashboard. Next slide, please. So how do we define a baseline and how do we define a threshold? We determine a baseline to refer to the initial reference comparison point for future performance monitoring. Using an example unrelated to Cal OAR, suppose a local dealership sells 250 cars in 2025. 250 would serve as our baseline or initial reference comparison point. In comparison to a baseline, a threshold is a target, which is relative to the baseline. So, if the best performing dealership sales in Sacramento are soaring above 250 cars, we want to assign a target threshold of 300 to our local dealership, or plus 50 cars from their 250 baseline. Simply put, baseline is the starting reference comparison point, and a threshold is a target. This is just a new way to look at the same information that's been available on the dashboard, but this initiative simplifies the goal of identifying a comparison point and a target threshold. Next slide, please. Through subcommittees and other collaborative efforts, we want to emphasize that the motive for this project is to promote accountability and program management. We want to know the effects of a program, how participants are being served, and helping guide improvement efforts. The ultimate goal is for this data to be informative and not compliance-driven. In other words, there are no penalties for counties. Baselines and thresholds are meant to be an additional resource that counties can use in their efforts to improve programs and better serve families. The general structure of how we aim to accomplish this is to review the six measures that baselines will be set for, develop an approach for setting baselines, then developing methodologies for creating targets for these measures. I'll now pass it over to Johnny.
Thank you, Alex. To expand on the subcommittee's work, the subcommittee considered 3 methodological approaches to developing these Cal OAR performance measure baselines. These 3 were benchmarking, statistical modeling, and trend analysis. The subcommittee concluded that trend analysis best meets our needs. This is what you see here. To define trend analysis, it uses past performance data to establish a baseline. It could use county or state performance data over a specific period of time to set targets. Next slide, please. To ensure key details of the methodologically were rigorously considered and tested, CDSS worked with a contractor. We were presented with several design choices for determining baselines. These included analyses of county performance by performance quartiles, the size of the county, if a county is classified as urban or rural, by employment development department region, and lastly by program enrollment side. But working with the feedback the committee had provided, CDSS determined that a simpler approach is better. And so the baseline methodology is a simple average across the full first cycle by statewide or county. Next slide, please. In doing so, the following decisions on methodology were made. Here you can see 2 columns, one for the baselines and one for the thresholds. We will first go over the baseline decisions. Baselines will be set once per 5-year cycle using individual county performance. They will also take an average of previous cycle data for the 6 process measures. Right now, we are using the average of the first cycle's data. By 2031, we will establish a new baseline using an average of the data from the second cycle. Baselines are calculated also using the same methodology for all measures and be set at the county level. However, statewide medians will also be provided as an additional resource. We will go over this more in the next slide. Moving on to the second column for thresholds. These will also be set once per cycle using county performance and stakeholder input. They will have a lower and upper bound threshold range. We have tried to ensure that the lower bound is attainable, meaning easily met, and the upper bound range is aspirational, something to strive towards. We will go over this in more detail in the following slides as well. Thresholds will use a different approach for each process measure and be set at the statewide level so that they are standard targets for all counties. Next slide, please. We will now go over some example baselines. Please note that these are example calculations using example data. These are not the real thing. On the left, you can see our 6 process measures, and on the right is the statewide median of each process measure shown in percentages. We have decided to use medians for this example to account for differences in county performance. As we know, larger counties, for example Los Angeles, will perform differently due to their size to a smaller county such as Marin. To quickly review what a median is taken from all counties' individual baseline percentages. Data is first sorted in ascending order, and then we will look at what percentages fall in the middle of our data. As averages can be skewed by outliers, the statewide median will be provided for baselines in addition to county level averages. Next slide, please. Moving on to example thresholds. These are also in percentages. On the left, again, are our 6 process measures, and on the right are 2 columns for our lower bound and upper bound percentages. Please note that the upper bound is typically a static range, meaning it will not change. Only for the process measure of sanction rate will both the lower and upper bound thresholds be set as a static range. Again, the reason why we have a lower and upper bound range is to balance the attainable with the aspirational. Lower bound percentages will easily be met by counties, while upper bound percentages use a shoot for the stars approach. We want counties to do as well as they can and for aim to these percentages if possible. But to be clear, there is no penalty if you do not meet these numbers. Next slide, please. To drive the point home, we are going to go over an example. Again, this is using example data. We will be using engagement rate for Los Angeles County. So this is what we might expect for Los Angeles County's baselines and thresholds. As you can see, Los Angeles County may have for engagement rate a baseline percentage of 26. LA County for the second cycle would have a target engagement rate between 36% and 90%, which is the threshold range. Next slide, please. I will now pass it over to my colleague Tej.
Thanks, Johnny. So from the perspective of smaller counties, it may seem strenuous or difficult to increase performance measures by more than 10%. However, smaller counties do not require many new clients in order to increase their performance rates due to their lower populations. So let's take a look at a couple of examples regarding engagement rate. So starting with Sunny County, suppose they have a denominator of 50 and a numerator of 14. That gives them an engagement rate of 28%. But by engaging only 5 additional families, we can raise that engagement rate to 38%. Now looking at an even smaller county like Windy County with a denominator of 20 and a numerator of 10, their current engagement rate sits at 50%. But by only increasing their engagement by 2 more families, we can see that they can increase their engagement rate by 10%, going to 60%. Next slide, please. I will now pass it over to Alex.
Thank you, Tej and Johnny, for the demonstration. Now that you've seen an illustration of how baselines and thresholds will operate throughout the Cal OAR project, we hope that the definitions provided earlier make a little bit more sense. Once again, a baseline is a starting point for comparison, and a threshold is a target relative to that baseline. We also want to emphasize that our decisions have been made with your county in mind. We've attempted to set baselines and thresholds such that goals are attainable or reasonable for counties to achieve, but also push counties to be aspirational in their results. Next slide, please. On that same note, I want to take some time to explain how this impacts you explicitly. First, this is a roadmap, not a report card. Baselines tell you where you're starting, and thresholds tell you what looks good over time. Together, they create a clear, data-driven path for improvement based on your county's individual data. The targets determined are individualized and over time will provide you a realistic roadmap towards program improvement and maintenance. Second, the data illustrates your progress towards target thresholds. You can use this data to improve business processes, justify staffing and workload changes, or additional exploratory analysis. Lastly, many counties are already doing strong work, but it isn't always clearly visible. This initiative will help show where you've made progress, where changes made are working, and how your system is becoming more effective over time. This visibility is important because this shared initiative makes technical assistance more targeted and useful. I'll now pass it back to my colleague Tej.
Thanks, Alex. So from the same WIG code, CDSS is obligated to set a dispute resolution process. We should be familiar with the three major sections above. First, when we send the data to counties, then when the counties have the review period, and if there is an issue, how we may attempt to resolve the issue. Some of these include technical assistance and amending CDSS code. Next slide, please. So here's some next steps and the general timeline. So early this year, the ACIN will be shared. In around October of 2026, the data required to set baselines and thresholds will be acquired from CalSAWS. Later this year, the calculations will be done by RAD, and by early next year, the data will be live on the CalWORKS interactive summary website. Next slide, please. So this is what will eventually be on the CalWORKS interactive summary page. The first cycle and second cycle columns with the baseline and thresholds will be updated once per cycle. The columns you see on the right-hand side would stay fiscal year 2026 to 2027 and 2027 to 2028 will be updated and added to the website as we approach those fiscal years. For example, we would read this as Alameda County has a baseline of 67% for engagement rates. Their threshold would then be from a range of 77% on the lower end to 90% on the higher end. Once again, this is sample data and not the real thing. Next slide, please. So let's go over some differences between the CSAs and SIPs regarding baselines and thresholds. So with the CSAs, the self-assessment report templates already include some questions about performance measure baselines and thresholds. Regarding SIPs or system improvement plans, like in the first cycle, counties will have the flexibility to choose which performance measure or measures they are focusing on for improvement in the second cycle. Next slide, please. And I'll now pass it over to Jaspreet.
Thanks, Tej. So we know that you've just heard a lot of information, and you may have questions about the impact of baselines and thresholds on counties going forward. So we're going to reiterate some of the key facts from the presentation that you've already heard, but we're going to do it in the form of a Q&A, and hopefully that'll help drive home some of these takeaways. So is there a penalty or incentive associated with the thresholds? No, there is no penalty or incentive associated with the thresholds. Question number 2. How will the development of baselines and thresholds impact the CalWORKS County Self-Assessment, which is the Cal CSA, and the System Improvement Plan, which is the Cal SIP? So the answer is counties will be asked to analyze their performance vis-a-vis baselines and thresholds on the CSA and SIP templates. They will have an opportunity to comment on anything that deserves additional consideration or explanation. Question number 3. Are counties going to have to focus on at least one of the 6 process measures for a Cal SIP goal? The answer is no. Counties are not required to focus on any of the 6 process measures for their Cal SIP goals, but many may choose to. These 6 process measures were the most frequently chosen performance measures by counties for the first cycle of Cal SIP goals. Question number 4. Will baselines and thresholds be broken out into different demographic categories, e.g. age or household composition? The answer to that is no. The baselines and thresholds data will only be provided at an aggregate level. Question number 5. How frequently will baselines and thresholds be evaluated and updated? The answer is once every 5 years. A new baseline will be set once the complete second cycle data is available. Once those baselines are calculated, updated corresponding target thresholds will be published as well. So with that, we want to take an opportunity to pause and see if there are any other questions that we can address at this time. And feel free to unmute yourself or post questions in the chat.
I don't think they can unmute themselves, but they can raise their hands and we will unmute them.
Yes, apologies. Thanks for that clarification, Katie. Yes, we have a question. Can you please explain number 3 process measures? Do you mean a question number 3 on this slide, Leo? Or the one of the measures? Oh, okay. So yeah, so the question here is, are counties going to have to focus on at least one of the 6 process measures for a CalSIP goal? And the answer to that was no. They're not. Counties are not required to focus on any of these measures, but they may choose to. But they will be asked to address their performance vis-a-vis, thresholds on the CSA and the CalSIP templates. Does that make sense? Oh, what are the process measures? Yeah, those are the phase 1 measures, basically. Could we go back to a slide that maybe shows those? I have a lot of slides, but it's basically, I can read them out.
It's slide 19. Yeah, slide 19.
Right. Yeah, so it's engagement rate, sanction resolution rate, orientation attendance rate, OCAT appraisal completion timeliness rate, and the first activity attendance rate. And okay, we have another question from Rima. Is the CalSIP only focusing on phase 2A? And I think you corrected that to mean phase 1 performance measures again. Can someone address that one?
The system improvement plan template for the second cycle, you'll have an opportunity to address any of the performance measures that are available for the second cycle, which is the majority of them at this point in time. And you'll choose them based on your county's needs and what would best serve the population that you are serving. And Alicia, you'll be receiving comprehensive data on all of the performance measures that are available, which is getting close to 26, but we still have a few that are in development. So, Maheen, yes, you will be asked to select at least one performance measure to focus your improvement strategies on. You could choose any of the performance measures that are available, which is, again, most of them, yeah, regardless of the phase. But you'll choose the performance measure that makes the most sense for your county to focus on. So when you do the second cycle county self-assessment, you'll think about what the needs are of the population that you serve, where there's opportunities to improve. And then based on that self-assessment, you will choose a performance measure to focus your improvement plan strategy on. You do not need to choose one of the process measures. But again, when you look at this list of the process measures, these also reflect like most of the measures that counties chose to focus on, because these are what we understood from counties, the ones that are most within counties' control to change and improve. And yep, so we will be publishing, so Aditi, we will be publishing the baselines and thresholds on the CDSS website as part of our CalWorks interactive summary. So that is the website that replaced the CalWorks annual summary. And so they'll be published there and updated as data becomes available. And so I just, excuse me, I just dropped a link in the chat for the CalWorks interactive summary for those of you who might not be familiar with it. So we publish a lot of data there, and this will be one of the tables that we'll add to it once the baselines and thresholds become available in the fall and winter of next year. So Monica, we will plan to send the information out to counties ahead of it being published. And then we'll publish it on the interactive summary for you all.
And can you unmute Susie Haro? She has her hand raised to ask a question. Or can I do that? I probably can.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Just a silly question, and maybe I might have not heard it correctly, but I know we're going to do the baseline thresholds on the process measures. But for the second cycle, will we be getting like, is there going to be like a release of the additional measures that we'll be monitoring with the crosswalks and stuff? Like, will that be also be released all, I'm assuming all in conjunction together? Like, is there going to be in addition to in addition to the process measures, what, like, you know how right now we have the two phases, we have phase one releases and phase 2B. Will there be additional, do we know which additional performance measures will be for the identified for the second cycle? I know some are being looked at and kind of being developed in the back end for some enhancements, but do we know what those are?
Yeah, so we are currently, I think you're referring to phase 2B measures, which are sort of the outstanding measures that have not gone into production yet. We are working on those, and this is going to be covered in an upcoming slide actually, but we've completed validation and we are working on getting those sort of up and running. So that is forthcoming, but those measures are going to be separate from, they're not, there won't be baselines and thresholds associated with those measures. It's just going to be these 6 phase 1 measures that you're already very familiar with.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So the 2Bs will not have. What I'm hearing is they won't. These will remain the 6.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, we have a question from Fasil. Just to confirm, thresholds are based on each county's actual measure outcomes from first cycle rather than a statewide median or average, excluding the sanction rate?
So I'll take this. So thanks. And so Fasil, my answer to your question is also going to include a bit of an answer to Leonardo's question. And actually, if we could go back to slide 17 on the screen, please. A lot of what's required by CDSS in establishing the baselines and thresholds is set in statute. It's in the WIC. So we have to set the baselines for each county and statewide. And we have to set a standard target threshold. And so, Leonardo, like the statute, unfortunately, was not changed as part of SB 119. So some of the performance measures did change with SB 119. We are still required to establish baselines and thresholds for the performance measures as they were in the first cycle. So we can release guidance that suggests that counties and their board of supervisors take into consideration that the measures have changed because of policy. But unfortunately, the law is that we have to release them this way. And so, Facile, to your point, the law is very clear, and we've had a lot of legal review, that we need to establish standard. And what our lawyers said that meant was statewide target thresholds for each of the performance measures. So it'll be based on what the statewide performance should look like, is what your target range is going to be. And so this is where I'd want to remind everybody that this is just set as a tool to do some comparison. There are no penalties associated with this. I recognize that your board of supervisors might be looking to it and that you might face pressure based on that. And yes, the second cycle SIP will still be required to have board of supervisor approval. Yep, so I hope that that helps. So yeah, this is what the law says, and this has been the statute. It's been unchanged since the Cal OAR was written into the WIC. And yes, Jacqueline, I see your request here. Yes, we can certainly provide that. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions at this time about baselines and thresholds? Oh, another one from Rosalinda. Will this information be released in an ACL, ACIN? And that answer is yes. The WIC, yes, question from Melinda. The WIC was shown in one of the slides. We can probably post, we will be sharing this out afterwards, but we can post a link to it as well, or post it in the chat as well.
And I saw a question from Michael. Do you currently have a rough estimate of when the updated Cal CSA template may be provided, either to Cohort 1 counties or to all counties?
That is an excellent question. We are currently looking at all of those all the feedback that we received through the optimization subcommittee, as mentioned earlier, looking at changes that are coming up based through the Transforming Cal Works, and really hoping to have that CSA template ready later this year, maybe earlier, but still kind of waiting for things that are a little bit out of our control to work through some of those changes.
So you can feel free to keep sending us questions. You can keep posting them in the chat, or also reach out with questions afterwards as well, of course. We can move on, so we can just get through the next few slides. We're almost at an end, and we have a few more updates that we want to give you. So just really quickly, here is the list of data resources that are available for you to utilize. We have published the Cal OAR Training and Technical Assistance page. This page houses a variety of recorded trainings that we've held in the past, as well as recordings of previous forums and monthly check-ins. It also has data crosswalks and an FAQ document, which is a running document updated about once a quarter with the most frequently asked questions from counties regarding performance measures. You'll also find a county data resource guide, which is geared towards newer county staff who are learning to navigate Cal OAR tools. We have another page called the Cal OAR County Toolkit. This page includes our analysis tools. It includes a data toolkit that summarizes the performance measured data flow, the internal and external sharing of Cal OAR data, how to obtain non-de-identified data, and the CDSS identification methodology. And it also has links to the timeline calculators for all of the different phases, which help you understand the relationship between the measurement month and the calculation month, or the transmittal month. And lastly, we've included a link to ACL 1940, which is our most referenced letter regarding Cal OAR. And as always, if you have any further questions relating to data or data resources, please don't hesitate to reach out to your CQI specialist. I see we have a hand raised. We unmute.
Hi, this is Rima from Solano County. I had a question regarding the crosswalks that are sent out from CDSS ahead of the transmittals we receive. I noticed the crosswalk that we received in the emails older than the one that is available on the website, and the data validation steps for sanction resolution rate and sanction rate are not the same. So I wanted to just get clarification on which one we should be using in that regards, whether the one that's in the CDSS or the one that's on the website, since that one is more updated, or if someone could look into that and get back to us on which one we should be using for counties who are still using crosswalks for data validation.
Sure. So the ones on the website are the most updated ones. The ones that get sent out with the transmittal email may need to be updated. Raven, do you think you could take a look at that and see if the transmittal email needs to be updated to include those new links?
Yeah, I'll check it out after the forum, and then if need be, I can send out. We can send out the new one with the PowerPoint from today.
Great. Yeah, thank you for putting that out to us. Helpful.
A question from Leonardo. Are there any updates on the child care access rate and homeless rate to share with this group?
Yes, so that is going to be in one of the upcoming slides. We'll get to that in just a moment. Great. Can we move to the next slide, please, Katie? Thank you. So real quick update on phase 0, phase 1, and phase 2A. As you all are probably aware, the phase 0 quarterly transmittal has been paused since September 2025. This is because the data team at CDSS is currently transitioning to a new internal system that will significantly streamline many of our data-related processes. So the impacted measures are listed there on screen. Those are the phase 0 measures. And the phase 0 transmittal will resume in June 2026. Phase 1 and phase 2A measure transmittals are continuing as scheduled. Next slide, please. So phase 2B county validation has been completed. Thank you to all of the counties that helped with that effort. Counties were asked to validate CalSAW's variables that comprise the phase 2B measures, which are the measures that you see listed on the screen there. Recall that these measures also use data sources outside of CalSAWs. So for this reason, counties cannot validate the entire measure calculation, but only the CalSAWs variables that contribute to the measure calculation. So we're currently reviewing the feedback and working with CalSAWS to make adjustments and optimize the data, the variables. And the following Phase 2B measures are paused due to subcommittee feedback and also ongoing revisions to the CalWORKs appraisal due to the Transforming CalWORKs legislative changes. This includes the Homeless Assistance and Housing Support Program access rate and the child care access rate. So those are paused until further notice. You will get plenty of notice, whenever we are move forward with those. For now, they are paused. And there are other measures that may be potentially impacted by Transforming CalWORKs, and we're still gathering data on that, and so that's actually going to be covered in the next slide. So Katie, if we could get to the next slide, please. Thank you. So subcommittee members were asked to provide feedback on potential impacts of Transforming CalWORKs on Cal OAR. Measures listed here were the ones that are under consideration. We wanted to get feedback and insights from the subcommittee about what possible effects there may be. What do we need to consider? We did provide very specific questions to the subcommittee for them to sort of consider and respond to. And so right now we are reviewing that feedback, and we will reach back out to the subcommittee after we have determined next steps. So it's still very much in process. Nothing has been decided yet, but we are taking in all of the feedback that we received. Any other questions on that before we can the next slide? Okay, I will pass it over to you, Raven.
Thank you, Jaspreet. So it looks like we're almost at time, so I'll try to get through this as quickly, as concisely as I can. But first, we would like to share some exciting news. We are launching beta testing the CSS dashboard. This dashboard will have quarterly reports data, so the data that counties currently receive in the PDF every quarter, so there should be an email coming out later this week, early next week, that will have the CSS dashboard link. We will be sharing this Tableau link in the same email as the reports come, so you don't have to worry about looking for a separate link or a separate email, so everything will be in one email. You can also access the dashboard by going to the main Cal OAR dashboard and select the CSS tab. As you can see on the screen, it's right below the documentation tab. Similar to the performance measure dashboard, you'll be able to kind of navigate through the CSS tab as well. But like I mentioned earlier, this is the same data that counties receive in the PDFs, the quarterly reports, the statewide PDF, and the individual county PDF. And just a reminder, if there has not been any responses for the survey, typically with smaller counties, you will not receive a quarterly PDF document just because there was no responses for the quarter. And then counties, like I said earlier, counties will still continue to receive those PDF quarterly reports as well. And please feel free to provide any and all feedback to us. We are still beta testing this. You can provide the feedback either through the Cal OAR inbox or your CQI specialist, and then we will make adjustments as needed. Next slide, please. And then with that, we thought we'd share some data for the CSS. So this is what the dashboard will kind of look like depending on the questions. So this chart on this page, this chart shows data from 2025 Q4. So Q4 is months October, November, and December. The first chart we have is during my Welfare to Work orientation, all, some, none, or I did not have any of my questions were answered. And as we can see here, over 85% of the questions were answered and 6% did not have any questions. Next, we have the during orientation, I was provided information about the following services. And with the key at the bottom, we can see the different services offered, and you can select your county or other counties. And for this one, we can see childcare was the most. And this is all statewide data for both of the charts on this page. I did not include any counties, but you can always compare your county or a neighboring county to statewide as well. Again, this is just an example of the data counties will be able to see on the dashboard. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a quick little update regarding the CSS. Both we have an exit survey and a revamped CSS coming out soon-ish, kind of in the future. Nothing is set in stone. We will be sharing out questions with the work group and/or partners for feedback. So beginning with the exit survey could potentially survey participants who have exited the program within 3 months with the possibility of covering activities offered, completed, caseworker experience, and overall experience in the program. The purpose is to help counties gather feedback from participants after exiting the program on how to improve service delivery. And then we are in the middle of finalizing a draft of questions, and we plan to share the survey questions out for feedback. And this is regarding the exit survey. And then moving on to the revamped CSS, we will continue to evaluate the CalWorks program, focusing on the participant satisfaction during the first 6 months of time on CalWorks 8. So it will still cover orientation, welfare to work first plan, and STAR 7. And again, nothing is set in stone. We also plan to incorporate feedback from previous work groups and share a final draft of the revamped CSS for updated feedback before relaunching this. And now that concludes the CSS updates. I will pass it back to Katie.
Well, we have run out of time. So if you have any questions, please send them off to our Cal OAR inbox or to your CQI specialist. And I'm going to just pop past open forum Q&A because we don't have time. Let's see, I'll just read it. Many of you recall that these forums were held monthly during the early days of implementation, and they were adjusted on a quarterly cadence as the initiative became more established. At this time, based on feedback from partners, we believe a biannual cadence still meets our needs as we look forward to the end of the first cycle and the beginning of the second cycle. We will again reach out for feedback and may adjust the cadence accordingly. That concludes our biannual Cal OAR Forum. We'd like to thank everyone for participating. If you think of any questions that we did not cover, don't hesitate to contact your CQI specialist or the Cal OAR inbox. And again, we are noting every question in the chat to make sure that we address each one. After this forum, we'll send out the presentations. Our next forum will be in July, actual specific date to be determined. And I hope you all have a great day. That's the fastest I could talk, so I apologize. We ran over a couple of minutes, but we're so glad to see you all, and I hope you have the best day. Thank you so much.